On this week's full-time roundup, Spurs slip up to catch up with Aston Villa. The Cups are back in full swing, and Serie A 4th through 7th place heats up. Full-time roundup starts right now. And welcome in to another edition of the full-time roundup. It is me, Daniel Brackett, your co-host. Joined with me is Matt Gesslin early in the morning. Matt, how are you doing?
Getting used to these 7:30 editions on Thursday. It's a beautiful day. I hear the birds just chirping, so it's going to be a nice one here in Charlotte. Looking at about 70 degrees and sunny, so can't complain. And a little nervous for this afternoon, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Absolutely. Just by the way, Matt, I think your mic is not plugged in. So just a heads up as I will stall for you. But yeah, no, it is an absolutely beautiful day in the Queen City today. After this nice weather, it has gotten a little chillier for this weekend, but that's okay. Still mid 50s, mid 60s. But boy, do we have some good games, today, tomorrow, and all weekend long. So I'm excited to break them down. But the first one that I wanted to get to was, of course, in the Premier League, and Arsenal are able to get by Luton here. And, I expected Arsenal to absolutely crush Luton before, this game started. But once I saw that lineup that Arteta put out, I was like, I don't know, maybe Luton can work their magic here. But, Arsenal score 2 in the first half and then kind of coast in the second.
Yeah, they pretty much dominated the first 20 minutes here as well, even though they didn't score right off the bat. It felt like it was coming. And then Kai Havertz sets up Martin Odegaard with a beautiful goal to kick things off, and it was off to the races. Now, I will say this. There's two ways of looking at this. One, they give Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka some rest, who definitely needed it. I think Saka had a little bit of a knock after the City game, and also he was still nursing one going into it. Didn't play international over the break, and was still kind of nursing that. So good to give him some time off, and they need him down the stretch. The other way to look at it, though, Daniel, and I think this is a little bit more kind of the concern for me, is this Premier League title is going to be so tight, and it could come down to something like goal differential. And Arsenal really sat back in the second half. They kind of parked the bus a little bit, which was very surprising to me. They could have made this a statement win, 4 or 5-0 type of win, and added to their goal differential, in the positive way. I don't know if that's going to ultimately be the deciding factor, but when you're looking at a race that is literally, if Liverpool win today, or even if they draw, it's 3 teams within 3 points of each other. And so, and if Liverpool draw, it's 3 teams within a point of each other. So that's how tight this race is going to be. And it could come down to something on the final day as far as goal differential. There's been jokes about, have a playoff match at Wembley if there's a draw, or a tie at the top in the final day. That's the conversation that we're having. This race is that close. And so when you're playing a team like Luton, especially if you look at the rest of Arsenal's schedule, this was a chance really to kind of make a little bit of that last statement to go and get, like I said, a five spot or even better. Luton are just really disappointing right now. I think injuries have caught up with them, and we've talked about it. I'm very hopeful they stay up, but I think they've run out of gas, and you could see that, and especially in the first half. Second half, they played better. Now, give them credit. They took what Arsenal gave them. They made a little bit more offensive, front foot football. But when Arsenal's sitting back like that, you kind of have no other choice.
Yeah, you bring an interesting perspective when it comes to the title race and just goal differential. I'm so focused as a Liverpool fan, just winning the games, that I haven't even really considered goal differential or other stats of that nature. So I'm glad you brought that, to light, because I guess it's the little things that do matter in terms of, getting to the finish line. But in terms of Luton and just the state of the squad, I mean, Luton were projected to be the worst team in the Premier League at the start. And then they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a full XI of injuries just to add on to that. So, I mean, no wonder Luton's kind of crumbling right in front of us just because their entire squad's injured. So especially playing at Arsenal at home, I'm still impressed. They kept it close, especially because Declan Rice and Co did come on in the second half, so it could have gone a lot worse. So shout out to them for not turtling up in the first half or after the first 2 goals were scored. But yeah, no, it's not looking too good for Luton, and it seems like we might just have the relegation team set, but you never know with FFP and everything else like that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute as well. And I guess before we transition over to the City game, which of course was big as well, given who they were playing on. Oh, actually, let's go there first. We'll do the title rundown afterwards. But of course, City play Aston Villa and a little bit of revenge as Villa beat City in the reverse leg of this fixture earlier in the season. Of course, Pep Guardiola called it arguably City's worst performance of the season, and it didn't look great to start either here. Of course, they get the opening goal with Rodri. Man, this guy may be the best player on City's team that no one really talks about too much, but gets the opening goal. And then Daniel, Villa come back. They get a big goal from John Duran, who I know you're very high on, who I'll give you a chance in a second. And then maybe one of the most disappointing moments of a player's season happens that completely changes the game, and Phil Foden takes advantage of it.
Yeah. That so it was 1-1, right? And both goals were fairly good to start out, and it's 1-1 with 20 something minutes and played, and it's looking like this is going to be another instant classic between Villa and City, as Villa, like you mentioned, has had City's number over the last probably 2 seasons, especially with Emery at the wheel. But what a disgraceful, it's like to concede on a set piece like that right before half is just one of the most infuriating daggers if I'm Emery. Ewan tweeted out, and I responded on the full-time roundup account the other day, just talking about how, obviously with open play and everything, it's so important to have good coaches, but now the edge is a set piece coach, and the best teams in the world are really good at set pieces, and to just concede because your wall breaks up. I mean, this is schoolboy shit. I mean, I don't know what you were taught growing up, Matt, but you lock the arms and you do not break from the wall, or it will not be good for you in practice. And just to do that on the highest level against the best team in the Premier League, when you're tied and you're fighting and you're going toe to toe with them, that's just completely takes the wind out of your sails. And you saw it in the second half. I mean, City just ran it up in the second half. Also, Emery, the fact that he just went with such a rotated XI, basically just chalked it up to City. Like, I just don't get it. Like, why would you not want to knock City off their perch and really go for it? And I feel like Emery really rested for this weekend instead, for a more winnable game. And I just, as a Liverpool fan, obviously with my bias, I was just a little frustrated how he set up.
Yeah, of course, if you haven't seen it, Nicolo Zaniolo basically turns his back and from the wall and gives Foden a clean shot. It would have hit him, probably square in the abdomen area. So not even a free kick that really would have tested the keeper had it been, just stayed in the wall. And I mean, if I was his teammate, I would be absolutely irate with him in the locker room. That's something that like you said, you're told from the start. You stand in the wall. If it hits you, it hits you. Yes, it might be painful for a second. You go down, you get the wind knocked out of you, but that's your job. You're asked to stay in the wall, and that's what you do. And to turn your back, and then not only that, but to look back at your keeper and say that it was the keeper's fault.
Insanity.
It was just pure insanity. And hopefully he got an earful from the manager and from the teammates in the locker room, but completely changes the game. Like you said, this is right at the halftime whistle, essentially 1-1 game. Of course, I think part of Unai Emery's decisions was a lot of injuries. Of course, John McGinn was suspended for his red card as well. So there was a lot of factors here for the rotated lineup, but it was disappointing to see them kind of make a few changes. And they still, to their credit though, Daniel, they gave City all they could in that first half. And I think it's a different game if you go into halftime at 1-1 with those injuries in play. No Ollie Watkins, he was hurt. Martinez was out with an illness. So there was a lot of things at play here. No Tyrone Mings, no Matty Cash. So again, a lot of things that he couldn't really control as far as injuries were concerned. But yeah, they're still in the top 4 race. And I think you had a chance to gain a point, but at the end of the day, I don't think they expected too much out of this matchup. But let's not take away from City here too, as well, in the second half, who, we've talked about it before. Phil Foden has been on an absolute terror. And between him and Rodri, they absolutely single-handedly dismantled Aston Villa. I mean, that second Foden goal was just a thing of beauty from Rodri. The footwork and just kind of dishes it off. Foden gives it a little tap to the far post. And then the third goal, which I don't know if he slips, which helps him get the height on the ball, but he hits that so clean into the top corner. And if you're Olsen, you're just looking at it go by and hoping that that's over the top.
Yeah. Phil Foden, 30 Premier League matches, 14 goals, 7 assists. Almost 21 goal involvements in 30 games is a remarkable record. I feel like no one's talking about it because it's Manchester City and they're not. People talk about Manchester City, but they don't have that cult following like the other teams, and so you're not hearing Rodri unbeaten in 40 matches and Phil Foden with a remarkable season. You hear about KDB and Haaland, but I mean those are arguably two of the more important players this season. I mean De Bruyne was hurt for the majority of the season, and Phil Foden was the guy who stepped up in his absence. But I also, even though Aston Villa did get crushed, if I'm an Aston Villa fan, I'm looking at that first half, I'm bottling it up, and I'm hopeful, because Morgan Rogers, you signed him from Borough. He looked good. He had that assist for the John Duran goal from who they signed probably a season and a half ago from MLS. He's looked good when he's gotten chances. And Ollie Watkins might be, on his way out after the season. So I'm liking the young core. I mean, this lineup that they put out is extremely young XI. So I was very impressed with that first half, how they, took on City toe to toe. But yeah, no, another day, another City win. It seems like it's just inevitable with them just rattling off wins at the end. But I guess what we can kind of pose this as is, Liverpool do play Sheffield United today. So they need to win to keep pace, but it is Sheffield. So no, I'm not worried. But I was talking to a Liverpool friend yesterday, and I was just basically telling them, man, like watching that Brighton game on Sunday, like I'm just a fan, and I felt the weight of this title race, like big time, and we were winning. And so, Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, they know how to handle these things. They're used to it, blah, blah, blah. But even with these smaller matches, I am just so nervous every single game. We're in the business end, and every single goal matters so much. And it's part of the season where it's win or go home.
I know you're not concerned about it. I wouldn't be concerned realistically either. Of course, this is still the Premier League. You never know what could happen. A draw has such an impact on this race too. And, my only thought to you would be, there's no hesitation about it being a trap game with the big one next weekend. Not even next weekend, this weekend on Sunday.
Yeah.
Is that something that, this team looks forward to, especially given what happened in the FA Cup? or is Klopp able to kind of keep his men focused on? Of course, we're talking about the Manchester United game, which we'll predict later. But is that a concern for you? Obviously, again, on paper, this team should blow Sheffield out of the water, especially at home. I think if it was on the road, it might be a little bit more concerning. But
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, they should be able to kind of brush past this and get ready for the big one on Sunday.
I imagine they will rest a couple guys. But no, I think with when you have a manager like Jurgen Klopp who is just so good with his players, he's gonna it's one game at a time. And obviously they're gonna be looking at the weekend probably more, but considering this game is at Anfield, I think it could get ugly fast. And then they could rest guys if they go full strength. So not really worried about it. But there was another really big game that decided or could decide kind of what's going to happen in the top four race. And as Villa kind of got beat by City, Spurs the day before absolutely gave up points against West Ham here, and they had the game in hand. They were, they're still 2 points, I believe, back from Villa, and this was one of those games. They've left it late the last 3 weeks, it feels like, for every single game, and they just didn't have enough in the tank to get the 3 points here. And that could be the difference between the fourth place and the fifth place. This was your chance to kind of leapfrog Villa, and they just didn't get it done.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like the pace of
Ange Ball
catching up a little bit this late in the season. Of course, this is the first season that the team has kind of gone a full slate with him, and it's different pace than the Scottish Premier League, right? Where it's a little bit, especially at Celtic, where they're going to dominate some of the lower teams, and it's really 3 or 4 games in the course of that season that are vital to kind of be at full attention, unlike the Premier League where you have to be full attention week in, week out. And I think that's starting to take shape now. I wonder, it'll be interesting to see if Ange makes any adjustments or if he just pushes forward. He's been pretty, I wouldn't say stubborn. It's just the way he wants to play. And so he wants them to play that style. And I think that's something that he's either going to have to take a reassessment on if he can go the rest of the way. Of course, I think going forward, yes, he'll have the guys in better fitness. The players will know what to expect going forward and how to prepare in an off season. They'll have new players. They'll have more depth, et cetera, et cetera. But right now you're right in it, and he's got to find a way to kind of get these guys to the finish line. And they still do have that game in hand. Of course, the makeup game with Chelsea needs to be played at some point, and so they'll have that. And they're only 2 points behind, but they had the lead here early. You mentioned Brendan Rodgers should start, or Brendan Johnson, excuse me, it should start, and he did. And he got the opening goal. Kurt Zuma gets the equalizer. Not too far behind.
Set
about
piece
10 minutes.
too.
Yeah, another set piece, which not surprising with David Moyes. That's pretty much David Moyes' MO: play defensively, take advantage of an opportunity you have, and then a real stinker of a game. Now, credit to David Moyes and his team; they could have absolutely fallen flat in their face here, especially given how their result finished with Newcastle on the weekend, where they blew a 3-1 lead. And of course, the benefit for them, I think, this one was at home. If they had to go to Tottenham Stadium, it would have been a totally different game. But in this instance, we're still in this race. Both teams didn't really do much to move the needle here, Spurs and Villa. And again, if you're Villa, you're a little bit thankful that you got out of this unscathed with still the lead in that race. But you do know that Spurs has that game in hand still. So you get past City. You still have Arsenal in 2 weeks. So this doesn't get much easier for you if you're Villa. But then the rest of the way should be a little bit more straightforward. I think you have Liverpool at some point towards the end of the season too, but you're kind of in a better place. If you're asking me between the two teams, I would take Villa, just because of what I've seen from Unai Emery, and what he's going to get at his players. If they can be healthy, I think they have the leg up here, but never count out Spurs and never count out Ange Ball the way they've been playing this season. But it does feel like some tired legs on that side of the pitch.
And you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that last 20 minutes, Spurs looked devoid of any ideas going forward. They looked like they didn't even want it. They looked like they were up 3-1 and just was trying to get past the time just to get through the game. You have tired legs with Spurs versus an injured Villa. Who's going to win? Two great coaches couldn't predict it, I guess, with Villa already having a 2-point lead, I could see them kind of seeing it out. But it's gonna be a tough one to predict for sure. But we do have Chelsea versus United to wrap up today, and I'm just going to preface it for you before you kind of go into what you think is going to happen. But Chelsea, abysmal against most teams, but against a top 6 opponent, they somehow just decide to show up. So I feel like Chelsea at the Bridge should give a surprising performance today. But considering the two teams and they're the most variable teams in the league, you flip a coin and that's what you're going to get.
United are a top 6 team, I guess.
Well, just historically.
No, I know what you mean. And this could be the nap game of nap games today, or it could be the most exciting game of the season.
It's a classic.
No one is going to know what happens with these two teams. That's the trouble. Of course, I'm nervous. I'm hopeful. If we don't beat them here in this game, we have some serious trouble. Not only are they just in bad form, I don't even know if they have a defensive line that can play tonight. They might have to pull the ball boys off the field and have them play. No Lisandro Martinez, no Varane, no Lindelof. On the left-hand side, no Luke Shaw, no Malacia. I don't even know if Harry Maguire's fit. So, yes, it's great that they got Mason Mount back in the middle of the park, but if they're playing, nobody in the middle, in the back, it could be a long day for Onana. Granted, he's playing Chelsea, so we'll hit the stands more than the net, which is also his benefit. Now, I will say this: you're going to laugh at me, but the schedule and the way that the table is set up.
Don't do this.
And the way that
don't do this.
Hey, just hear me out, because there is potential. Everyone's going to give me a hard time, and I know it's laughable, but just I'll preface it that there is probably zero chance that this happens the way that the team has played, although they have looked better a little bit of late. Mauricio Pochettino, of course, ripped into them yesterday's press conference saying no more exhibition type of games. They need to play for the crest on the jersey. It's time to play like the side that Chelsea is, where you're really just giving it all. And I think that's that. If that message resonates with the talent that they've had, and again, take aside the Burnley draw, they played a little bit better. We saw that, and that happens. It's the Premier League now. Was not a good result. I will admit that, but they have looked better. They've played. They've won. They hadn't lost the game in a little while as well, so they've played a little better. Now, I say all that to say that with the 2 games in hand on some of the league teams in front of them, and the way that the league is shaping up with Brighton tying yesterday against Brentford, if you look at it, Daniel, if we were to win today, okay, we would jump up to 9th in 43 points with still a game in hand over Newcastle and 2 games on West Ham, and we would only be 2 points behind West Ham for 7th. Of course, we would also have just beaten United and taken a 6-pointer on them, so we'd only be 4 points behind United for 6th. So there is an outside shot. I will just leave it at that Chelsea still can get into the European football. It would be very long shot, but the way that everyone's bunched up, if with the games in hand, they can jump some teams and at least maybe get out of 12th place, which is not where Chelsea belong and not what they need to be at, of course. But it's doable. But this game is going to be basically down to what team wants to show up and which version of the team that we get. Because if Chelsea is okay with being smacked around at Old Trafford in the reverse fixture and doesn't have any gall to come back out and prove that was a one-off or to get some revenge, then this roster has a lot more concern and issues than just being young and not knowing kind of how to adapt to Premier League football.
I don't know what I want to pull for more: Chelsea with no European football at 10th, or Chelsea in Europa Conference League, just to make fun of you next year as you play your competitions. I'm pretty conflicted there. I don't think it'll happen. But, you've been dying on your sword for this top 6 take for literally the entire history of this podcast. I made fun of you every step of the way. So if you were
the math is there in front of you.
The math is mathing. So I guess I might have to owe you an apology, but let's just get through this game first, all right?
Yes,
And then
agreed.
we can talk about it. But real quick before we wrap up the Premier League, Everton and Forest get big results. Everton get a draw against Newcastle at the death due to a WWE sumo flex slam on in the box with like 5 minutes left. I can't explain that one. I mean, he literally just like what is when you grab someone's neck like that, chokeholds them to the ground. Paul Dummett comes on and then gives that up. Gives Everton an absolute lifeline. And then Nottingham Forest surprisingly beat Fulham, who've been kind of in a weird form as of late. So two big wins and points, I guess you could say, for those two teams as Luton continue to slump. So I don't have the Premier League table in front of me, but I feel like there should be a decent gap. And I'm actually pulling it up now.
Yeah, 3 points from Forest and to Luton. So we're kind of getting to that point now. Granted, we don't know if there's any more point deductions for Everton, which is a caveat that we need to keep an eye out for. Of course, we'll keep you posted on that on the show if that does happen and any implications that has. But it does feel like we're down to our three, with Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield, of course, which is
send them right back down.
Send them right back down, and probably won't be back up for a while. But it does feel like those are the three to me.
Yeah.
Again, Everton are terrible, but they're going to have probably just enough again, and they can continue to stay in 16th if they want. I've harped on that before, and I'll probably do it again before the end of the season. But it feels like we've got our droppable three with quite a bit of time left in the season, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, hopefully FFP comes in late just to make things a little interesting for the relegation race as well as the Premier League title race. But yeah, no, some other games that happened this week, a lot of cups and then some other domestic action. So first we'll dive into the German Polkai. Another, wonderful result for Bayer Leverkusen as they have punched their ticket for the final of the DFB Polkai, they were beating Fortuna. I think it was Fortuna Dusseldorf is who they played, a second league opponent. It wasn't really even a game. I mean, they were up 3-0 at half, kind of coasting. But Xabi Alonso, I think we mentioned on the show, commits himself for another season. They're still in Europa League, 13 points in the league on treble watch now. They have officially punched their ticket to the final. So I mean, I think they're 40 games unbeaten now. Which is
two games behind Juventus for the longest streak undefeated in a season at 42 games. Now the only difference between that and let me just tell you this number because this blew my mind yesterday. First of all, if they were to get to the 42 number and if they were to continue on the pace of what they're doing it at, would be insane. Juventus did it with I think 21 wins and a
bunch of draws.
This is 35 wins in a season in 40 games. I mean, That is absolutely ridiculous.
So they just blown the points total from Juventus out of the water.
Out of the water. But the run that they're on is just remarkable. And the way they've done it, we talked about it on Sunday with how they came back in that game. And, they just find a way. They just continue to find a way. And 40 games is remarkable. And of course you mentioned Xabi coming back, announcing he'll be back next season. And basically I would say they probably have this title in the Polkai Cup wrapped up. They're playing a second tier team in the final who beat Saarbrücken in the other semifinal. They have, of course, the two hands, if not the hand, to celebrate on the Meisterschalen in Bundesliga. And then Europa League is really kind of a toss-up. I would say they're obviously the favorites or co-favorites with Liverpool, but that's you're looking at maybe one of the greatest seasons in Bayer Leverkusen's historic, history.
The greatest.
One of
the
them,
greatest.
if not the greatest.
Definitely the greatest.
It's a long history at Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah, no, Xabi Alonso stays another year, gets to win a title, might go 2 in a row, and then he'll go and join the Galacticos with Real Madrid. That's basically what him staying has told me and has told a bunch of other soccer people who follow the sport. I think he decided not go to Liverpool because of just the extent of the job, and Bayern are a mess. So understanding why he didn't want to do that. So
Yeah, and it
why wait?
looks like
Why
the
keep?
Zerbi probably goes to Bayern this summer too, from all
Yeah,
reports too. So yeah, it does kind of line up. Unless Liverpool take the bullet and have a temporary manager, caretaker for caretaker. There we go.
there we go.
For a year, and he goes there. But yeah, it does seem like he's gonna follow in Ancelotti's footsteps at some point.
Yeah, no, it definitely seems that way. And then we have the Coppa Italia with Fiorentina getting the leg up on Atalanta with a 1-0 narrow win. This was at Fiorentina, so Atalanta do still have the time to bounce back and win that second leg to make it to the final. But we'll see, because they are still challenging in the Serie A for like a top 4, top 5 finish, as well as Europa League. They do have Liverpool next week, so it's crunch time for Atalanta to kind of see what they can do, and if they can continue this run of form that they've been on. That's been fantastic. They are De Catalare is out injured right now, which is a big hurt. I think Scalvini just got injured, so he's doubtful for the Liverpool game, as well as probably the second leg of this game. So that's definitely a dagger for them. But on the flip side, Juventus. Allegri said they were going to show up on Wednesday, and they did show up with the 2-0 win against Lazio. If you don't watch Paramount Plus, the Paramount Plus coverage of just the absolute hatred for Allegri on that panel is something I don't think I've ever seen before. I mean, it was like assault with the words, what that Paramount crew was. And I was watching and I was like, wow, they feel like I feel. And maybe in the offseason we can rank the managers that we hate to watch their football the most, because Allegri is a top 3 one. And I that kind of was a content idea that I was thinking of as I was watching that clip. But yeah, no, I think Juve, we're at home, so we'll see. We'll be able to see if they can do the dark arts like they usually do to stay alive in the Coppa Italia against Lazio. But I think they're almost they're one step away from getting some silverware in a pretty dismal season.
Yeah, we did also say we thought they were prioritizing this over the league, especially given the buffer that they have. Although now, going into the league games that happen on Monday, of course, Bologna closed the gap, only 2 points now between them and Juventus, with their big win, which we thought was going to happen against I can't even pronounce it. I'll let you go for it again.
Salernitana.
Thank you very much, my Italian friend there over on the other side of the digital screen here. They closed the gap to 2 points, 57 points, 59 points for the respective teams. Roma drop out of the race a little bit for fourth with that draw. Now they're 7 points, 7 points out of fourth, 5 points away from Bologna. So it feels like it's kind of getting a little bit too far away. We thought it was going to be a fun race in between there, but this week, and of course, there's still a lot of games to be played, so we're not going to classify this as done. But it does feel like Bologna might catch Juventus, although who knows? After Coppa Italia, if they focus on that, get some silverware, maybe they've put a run together in the league, just to kind of keep it back on track and stay in the top 3. It would be big for them to not only financially, but also for recruitment and for just getting back to where Juventus belongs on the scale of world football. So that's kind of where we were at in La Liga, Serie A, excuse me. Now in La Liga, talking about managers football we don't like. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, sorry. There were the Monday games. We did preface it on the last show just to give you a quick recap. Bologna did win. So yeah, you did mention the 2 points, and then Roma actually drew. So now Atalanta with a game in hand is 2 points from Roma. So wanted to just quickly mention that. I kind of zoned out for a second, so it's possible that you you literally just mentioned that. But yeah, I just wanted to at least make sure we covered that. But yes, La Liga managers that we don't like watching, go.
Diego Simeone is one of the most difficult managers to watch if we're talking about managers that we don't like watching. I mean, it's a little different this year. They've played a little bit better, more expansive potentially. which may be why they have some struggles defensively this season versus what we were used to seeing them have in the past. But they get a big win, and they continue to kind of jump. They leapfrog back into fourth with Atletico Bilbao, who of course lose to Real Madrid on Sunday. So that race is really heating up right there. And of course, we've talked about it, Daniel, the big matchup on Saturday with them playing Girona.
Next Saturday.
Next Saturday,
it's a bye week because of the
Copa del Rey. Yep. So no La Liga games this week, except for the Copa del Rey, Mallorca versus Bilbao, ironically, but should be an interesting matchup. And then, of course, like I said, the next one against Girona will be huge, a 6-pointer there to potentially try and close that gap, currently at 7 points. So if that can get down to single digits, we've talked about it with Girona. Of course, Bilbao, who would have a chance as well to maybe jump up into fourth if that continues if all things continue at that pace. So we'll see what happens. It's a quiet week in La Liga, but we'll take a trophy to talk about on Sunday as well, any day of the week. But there were some other Copa, whatever you want to call a cup.
Coupe de France.
Coupe de France was played yesterday as well. Semifinals. Lyon and PSG will play in the final. No surprise there. PSG made it a little bit more difficult for themselves. Mbappe had about 4 or 5 chances. Goalkeeper made some great saves, including a penalty save. And then, of course, Mbappe finally gets one off a crazy deflection as PSG win 1-0 and will take on Lyon in the Coupe de France final,
which is a historic, like Lyon versus PSG. That's a great final. I mean, obviously it's PSG, so they'll probably win, but still a historic rivalry. It feels like there. Now, you mentioned PSG did beat Rennes, and Lyon actually beat a team called Valenciennes. Can you give a French pronunciation for me on that one?
I will have to double check on even where they played or who they played. I did not actually know the team they played. So
they're in the second league, League Two, I guess you could call it. They are actually bottom of League Two, and they made it all the way to the semifinal. So we'll talk about a fantastic cup run. We didn't follow the Coupe de France as much as we followed everything else, but I at least just noticed that not only are they in League Two, but they are bottom, dead last with 20. They will get relegated to the third league of France, but at least shout out to them for, terrible in League Two, fantastic in the Coupe de France. Don't really know how that works out, but football is an odd thing, isn't it, Matt?
It is. Valenciennes is, and it does sound Italian, but it's probably a city near the border. Of course, a lot of clubs, a lot of cities bordering with Italy or Germany and on the east coast of France. So it's not surprising. And looking at, just as you mentioned, looking at League Two before we go into predictions, a lot of teams in there that are very surprising to me, and especially where they sit. Bordeaux, bottom half of the table. Grenoble, bottom half of the League Two table. Angers, of course, at the top. Not surprising. Saint-Etienne at the top as well. Not surprised. Pau down middle of the table. So it just shows you the depth of football around the world when you're talking about some of the biggest clubs in French football history, which is not as deep or notorious as some of the other countries. But to see Bordeaux, who have been on the European stage before, not too long ago, and their bottom half of the table in second league is pretty remarkable. So again, this team, credit to them, they will get relegated. They're in last place by a mile, but that's why you love the cup. You never know when you can make a run in the cup.
Yeah, getting relegated to the third league and making the Coupe de France final would have just been absolute box office material. But Troyes as well, like right above that relegation zone, the City group, they continue to struggle. They could be facing double relegation here for City group's investment, which I am not going to lie, I'm pulling for. I would love a bad return on investment for the Manchester City group. But yeah, no, we do have some predictions for this weekend, some fantastic rivalries here. And we'll go ahead and start out with the Copa del Rey final, Bilbao versus Mallorca. Will Mallorca's magical cup run continue, or do you think Bilbao is going to get some silverware for the season?
On paper, this tells me Bilbao just because both they're the better team, but this run from Mallorca feels like it has one more story left to tell, and I'll go more Mallorca. 1-1 regular time, and I think they win it in penalties. Is I think how this one ends.
Yeah, I could see. I think this will go past 90 for sure. With Bilbao eventually raising the trophy, new Nico Williams, which does play a factor here. I'm gonna say they win it in extra time though instead. Even though I hate extra time, but yeah, we do both think that Bilbao will be lifting the trophy. We have a great.
I had Mallorca.
Oh, sorry, Mallorca. Excuse me. I had Bilbao. Sorry, it's early in the morning. My brain is not working as it should. But we also have Rangers versus Celtic in the Scottish League. I think if Rangers win, then they have a game in hand. They will leapfrog Celtic. So this is a 6-pointer, if you will. So who do you think? Are you going to back Celtic like you did? I think a couple months ago, or are you going to back Rangers here?
Just want to also preface how casually you introduced maybe the most fierce rivalry in all of sport, not just football. We'll table that for a side conversation.
I'm not as much as into the Scottish League as others.
It has nothing to do with that. It's just one of those games where you talk about derbies and rivalries, and this is up there, obviously for a lot of other reasons outside of football. You've heard a little bit about that from some of the players that have played in this matchup. It's become a little bit
political.
It's always been political, always been secular, as far as religion, Protestant, Catholics. It gets a little bit crazy to the point where I think players have recognized it's a little much out of the pitch. On the pitch, though, of course, they respect each other. They want to beat each other during the game, but they'll say hello to each other afterwards. Now, that being said, to finally give it the credit it's due, I'll take Celtic. I do like what Brendan Rodgers has done there. I'll stick by my gun that I took last time around too. I think they win this one and probably take the league as well.
Yeah, give me Rangers for sure. I think they'll be knowing this is a 6-pointer and they'll show up. So I think they'll get the win. Thank you also for the history lesson there, because I was not as aware of the different factors when considering. You said the Old Firm derby.
No derby. You don't say derby at the end of it, just Old Firm.
Old Firm, excuse me. But we do have a actual derby here, if that's okay with you, Matt, with Manchester United versus Liverpool. Liverpool has drawn Manchester United and has lost to Manchester United this season. Is this the time where Jurgen Klopp can get his last win against Man United?
Last win, revenge for knocking them out of the quadruple potential, and the way that game went down. So yes, I don't think this one's close. I think this is a 3-1 win for Liverpool.
3-1 win. I love it. Can you guys, lose to them so they come in cocky and then we can just brush them aside?
No, absolutely not. I want them to lose today so that way you guys sweat a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's what it feels like is going to happen. We have a relegation scrap as well, Everton Burnley. Now this is what could decide the relegation here. Just one game here, Burnley and Everton. If Everton win this game, it feels like they're going to go 7 points from Luton. So do you think Everton are going to be able to get it done? But Burnley have been a little better as of late, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, this week, and then they play Forest next as well, Everton.
Oh, wow.
These next couple games are huge for Everton. To your point, if Burnley does not get a result here, they are officially out. I think Luton might have an outside shot, again, just given potentially with either Forest or with Burnley, with Everton, excuse me. So I think this one's a must-win for Burnley. They're all must-wins or must-get points for Burnley at this point of the season. I don't like Everton. I know it's at home. I think Burnley find a way to put a W on the board. I know they've gotten a couple draws the last couple of games. They've looked better. I feel like maybe they're finding a little bit of form in the Premier League, which is tough for a promotion side. Give me 2-1, Burnley in a very scrappy game at Goodison. I just don't trust Everton. They do too many stupid things, and they find a way to look like a championship side for long, extended periods of time. And if you're talking about two championship sides, Burnley were one of the best championship sides in the last decade, last season. So give me Burnley 2-1.
I'm going to go with an Everton win here. I think they'll just be that annoying side who just stays up year in, year out somehow, some way. It feels a little bit different this year because they usually get hot at the end of the season, not, be just terrible at this period. But I think Everton have enough to win this match. We have another good, race here in the Bundesliga with Dortmund versus Stuttgart. Dortmund trying to catch up to Stuttgart to really finalize their place as in fourth place in the Bundesliga. Do you think they're going to share the spoils here, or do you think one side has an edge?
I think a draw. Dortmund have Champions League on their mind next week as well. So I think a draw, probably 2-2 draw here. But they're playing better, so I wouldn't be surprised if Dortmund get the W here at home, and also leapfrog Stuttgart to get into top three. I still think Stuttgart finished in the top four, but the way Dortmund have played of late, I think they might have an outside chance to get them, and this would be a huge way to grab those points.
Yeah, I think Stuttgart actually get points here. This is a huge letdown game for Dortmund after a huge win against Bayern, plus the Champions League that you mentioned. They have a lot of other stuff on their mind as of late. So I do think that Stuttgart should probably have the edge here just based off Dortmund's schedule that they have played. So I'm going to give Stuttgart a 3-2 win here. Going to the Serie A, we have a Rome rivalry here with Roma versus Lazio. Usually a perennial nap game here for you, Matt, but do you see this becoming interesting?
No, more of a nap game, but Roma probably get the win 1-0. Lazio not very good. A little bit of a finding form midway through the season that has seemed to have fallen off, but yeah, I'll take Roma 1-0, and they need it to keep pace for top four.
They do. We also have another good rivalry game in the Eredivisie with Feyenoord versus Ajax. Do you think this will be a walk in the park for Feyenoord, as Ajax do play today?
Yeah, I do think so. Ajax have been better, but Feyenoord light years ahead of them. Of course, both teams behind PSV either way, but Feyenoord probably gets a 2-1 win in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to say Feyenoord win this one 3-1. They do also play today. I forgot to mention that, but there were some rumblings of Xavi taking over as Ajax manager, which would be football heritage, as Johan Cruyff went from Ajax to Barcelona to kind of transform European football. It'd be really cool if Xavi returned the favor by going to Ajax and saving Ajax from their clusterfuck of a club right now, it feels like. Sporting Benfica. This is for the title. And Sporting has won or has owned Benfica this season. Ruben Amorim tipped for all the big jobs, including Liverpool, Barcelona, Bayern Munich. Everyone's going to be watching this game because everyone wants to see how Ruben Amorim faces against the best. So do you think Sporting are going to win this match, or do you think Benfica are going to be able to finally kind of get the monkey off their back, if you will, in terms of playing very bad against Sporting?
We're 48 minutes into this episode. I'm surprised it took us this long to get to this game, given your love for the Portuguese league. I will say Sporting get the win 2-1, although you'll probably tell me I'm wrong because I don't watch the Portuguese league as much as you do, but I'll take Sporting 2-1.
I think that's fine. It's an educated take. I think that's probably what's going to happen. Actually, I take that back. I think they're going to draw here to still make things interesting. I'm going to say 2-2 draw. But yeah, no, this is just has so many different storylines and so many different implications for next year. So definitely a must-watch game in as both Lisbon teams are playing in the derby. And then another little championship edition here. Norwich plays Ipswich, fighting for a playoff. Ipswich is top 3 right now. Could really use the 3 points to cement themselves in the top 2 of automatic promotion. Do you see, Johnny Hayes's yellow men getting a result here, or do you think Ipswich just keep pulling off these heroics?
John, if you're listening to this point, earmuffs. Ipswich gets it done, probably about 2-0. But the next game is just as important for Norwich. Of course, they sit in 6th. And so I think without taking your thunder, I'll take the next game quickly. I'll give you the last two. I think
I'm going 2-2 draw, by the way.
Okay, perfect. I think Leeds beat Coventry, so I don't think Norwich get too affected by this, but I do think Ipswich are gonna win that one.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Actually, no, I'm going to say 1-1 draw for Leeds Coventry. Coventry have looked good as of late, so I think Leeds might pull Leeds here, unfortunately. If you're listening to this, earmuffs. but yeah, no, a great race and championship to kind of end the season. It's been one of the best seasons in the championship to date. But if you're still listening to this, thank you so much. This is another episode of the Full-Time Roundup podcast. If you're listening to this on podcast forum, give us a 5-star and download. If you're viewing this on YouTube, go ahead and like this video and subscribe. Follow us on X at Full-Time Roundup, and follow our TikTok if you like our shorts at Full-Time Roundup. Thank you again. Another early episode, Matt, but we look forward to kind of breaking down all these matches that we predicted on Sunday.